Hey, what's up guys? Have you ever wondered how your favorite Chinese takeout spot gets their beef, their shrimp, their chicken so tender? It's through a process called velveting. Velveting is a simple meat tenderizing process conducted primarily through the use of baking soda or cornstarch slurry marinades. Now, when velveting with baking soda, the pH on the surface of the meat rises, making it more difficult for the proteins in the meat to tighten together and squeeze out moisture when they're cooked. Cornstarch velveting, on the other hand, is a process of marinating the meat in a cornstarch slurry, which often includes egg whites, soy sauce, and mirin for seasoning. Next, we pass the meat through oil or water to gelatinize the cornstarch on the surface of the meat, thereby trapping the meat's moisture under the protective layer of cornstarch. Now, I typically use both the baking soda and cornstarch slurry method simultaneously, which is what we're gonna use today in my recipe for orange beef and broccoli. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do is identify the meat's grain. As you can see, the meat is running this way. When we cut it for the stir fry size, we wanna actually cut against the grain. This is called a flank steak. On its own, it's a generally pretty tough cut of beef. The flavor is good, and I'll kind of break that down into more manageable pieces. Okay, so we've identified the grain. The grain is running like this, and then we're gonna get our slices just like that. And so as we slice, we're going against that grain. We're cutting it pretty thin, not super thin. You wanna make sure you use a good sharp knife and cut at an angle. And the tenderization process is done many different ways. One of them includes the way you cut it. So next, we're gonna take our baking soda. I'm gonna use 1% of the weight of the beef to measure out how much I should be using in baking soda. You can also use 1 teaspoon per pound of beef. The amount of water may vary. The most important thing you wanna do is just kind of hydrate the baking soda. Now that that's well combined, I'm gonna go ahead and pour this over the beef. And what you're gonna see is the surface of the meat brighten in color. It's one of the cool little effects of the baking soda velveting technique. All right, and we're gonna let this hang out for 30 minutes up to 2 hours. Remember, the meat is really thin. You don't wanna let this hang out on it too long. After it gets done, we're gonna rinse this off, and then we'll move on to the cornstarch velveting process next. So when it comes to cornstarch velveting, don't think of it as a recipe, think of it in ratios. So 1 teaspoon of cornstarch per pound of meat, 2 teaspoons of oil per pound of meat, 1 teaspoon of soy sauce per pound of meat, 1 teaspoon of mirin per pound of meat, 1 egg white per pound of meat, and salt and white pepper to taste. Now we're gonna let that marinate about 30 minutes. We're gonna get started on this orange sauce. I love orange zest, so I've included 1.5 medium oranges worth of orange zest. You can use as little or as much as you like. Now, orange juice from concentrate, non-negotiable. You must use orange juice from concentrate. It's a concentrated flavor, so don't replace it with fresh squeeze. Now, orange sauce is done. We're gonna go ahead and velvet our beef by passing it through oil, thereby gelatinizing the cornstarch on the outer layer of that beef. Now, once that's done, you bring it out. You wanna gently clean your wok and get it ready. Throw down those carrots and broccoli. You're gonna saute those up, man, 60 to 90 seconds. You're cooking over really high heat. Now, we're gonna go in, reduce this orange sauce. We're gonna add in that cornstarch slurry as soon as we put it into the wok. Now, once that gets to bubbling and boiling and getting thick and glossy, we're gonna go in with our beef and our broccoli and carrot. Now, we're gonna toss that for about 60 seconds, man, and that high heat on that wok gets this done so quickly. So now we're gonna get things plated up. I've got some white rice. You can pair it with fried rice. You can just eat the beef and broccoli if that's all you want. You can do noodles, whatever you want. It's your house, your rules. All right, guys, so let's see how tender it is. Tug, and it comes right apart. Wow. So good. Perfect amount of sweetness and orange flavor in the sauce. You get just a punch of acidity from the rice wine vinegar and the orange juice from concentrate. I'm telling you, use orange juice from concentrate. Don't use fresh orange. It's much better. It's more concentrated flavor, obviously. Wow, that beef is so tender. And because we rinsed it, there's no bitterness from the baking soda. Always velvet your beef anytime you're doing some Chinese takeout. This is my orange beef and broccoli. If you like the recipe, click subscribe, and we got many more adventures to come.